Okay, let's go ahead and start today's Rainwater Readiness program. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Monica Driggers, and I'm the Deputy Director for the Massachusetts Rivers Alliance. Today, I'm filling in for our usual host, my colleague Lydia Olson, who is our technical specialist. Welcome to the Rainwater Readiness 2025 Stormwater Workshop webinar series. This webinar series offers information about grant and loan programs that are available to be utilized for stormwater management projects by managers from municipalities, nonprofits, and other organizations that may be considering such projects in the future. For the 2025 Stormwater Workshop webinar series topics and schedule, please visit the Mass Rivers Alliance website. We're still adding sessions to this series, so we recommend that you check the site frequently for the latest information. You will also find all the information and recordings for the in-person session of this series, which took place the last week of September of this year, and our previous Stormwater Workshop series in 2023 there. Today's webinar will be discussing grants available through the EEA platform, Environment and Climate One Stop. Please mark your calendars for the next webinar session, Thursday, November 20th at noon. We'll be talking about grants that are still available through federally funded programs. A few housekeeping items. Number one, the session is scheduled to end at 1 p.m. Two, please put your name and affiliation in the chat. Three, please put your questions in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, which Mass River staff is tracking, or hold them until the last 10 minutes question and answer session. And four, these webinars are being recorded. Recordings and any other webinar materials will be made available on the Mass Rivers website. Lastly, we ask that you please complete the evaluation survey. Doing the evaluation helps us keep this webinar series free and open to everyone. And it has been crucial in helping us continue and expand the series. We'll also send the link to you after the webinar. And now I'm delighted to introduce our speakers today. Bill Hinckley, a longtime funding expert at the Massachusetts Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. Courtney Roca, municipal from the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program. Courtney is a regional coordinator with the MVP program, where she supports cities and towns as they plan for and implement climate resilience projects. She provides technical assistance, guides communities through MVP 2.0 and action grant processes, and helps strengthen community engagement. Courtney works closely with municipal staff, consultants, and state partners to ensure projects meet program goals, advance equity, and build long-term resilience. And last but not least, Kathleen Mason. She is a coastal habitat and water quality specialist with the Massachusetts Office of Coastal Zone Management. She manages the Coastal Habitat and Water Quality Grants Program, which provides funding and technical support for projects that improve coastal water quality and habitat health. Kathleen brings expertise in stormwater management and water quality planning to help communities implement effective, nature-based solutions across the Commonwealth. Okay. So with that, I will stop my share. And I think, Bill, you can go ahead and start.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to fire up my slides here and go to share. And here we go. I'm going to share that screen, and we're going to hit beginning. Well, good afternoon. My name is Bill Hinckley. I'm with the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, and I'm excited to bring to you some information about our new initiative that we are calling the Environment and Climate One Stop, or ECO. And so this is a new way to access existing grants. So the way that this program works is we are bringing a number of programs, 7 programs together under a single front door. Our goal here is to try to make it easier for our partners to find and apply for grants and make it a little bit easier and more efficient. So instead of having 7 individual grant applications due at different times, it's a single grant application due at one time, but you can apply to one or more grants utilizing the same set of questions with that. Then the application will then guide you to bring to provide additional answers as needed. This is an important part of our resilient mass strategy in order to make grants more accessible. And we're hoping to link our constituents to the best sources of funding for their project. If you've been familiar with the Executive Office of Economic and Development, you may be familiar with their the One Stop for Growth. And we've been modeling our program after their very successful program. As I mentioned, we're going to be bringing 7 individual grant programs related to climate resilience under one roof. So this is going to include the MVP Action Grants, the Coastal Resilience Grants, Coastal Habitat and Water Quality. You'll be hearing about some of the CZM programs in MVP shortly. The Cooling Corridors Program, which is a fairly new program dedicated to tree planting and heat resilience. The EEA Planning Grants, the EEA Dam and Seawall Grants, and from Fish and Game and the Ecological Restoration, the Culvert Replacement Municipal Assistance Grants. Now, with these grants, nothing has changed about the grants themselves, except they're coming together in the same front door. It's very important that each grant applicant check out their eligibility for these grants. So not every grant is going to be open to every different type of applicant. But we'll include this chart, and we also have a handy webpage that I will refer to briefly to help you understand the eligibility a little bit more. There's a couple things that are new about the grant programs. The first thing is what we're trying to do is to align all of the match requirements across the 7 programs. So that said, we've created a 10% across the board match, which means that that's based on the amount of grant funding requested. For example, if a project is seeking $100,000, we'll be looking for at least a $10,000 match to provide that local share. However, the match can come in cash or in-kind services such as staff time. It's important to note that match is not required for rural and small towns designated as such by the Office of Rural Affairs. And that list is on the mass.gov website. You can just search for Office of Rural Affairs. Just like to talk a little bit about the timeline, and this program is actually already launched. So we've had the first step in this was what we called the expression of interest phase. Now, many people in many towns and organizations have already utilized this service. It closed on October 28th, and we received 541 individual expressions of interest. We'll be following up with folks who submitted one of those EOIs, as we call them, and we'll be scheduling meetings all the way into January to discuss all of these projects. In mid-January, early to mid-January, we expect to issue the request for responses. And this will be one RFR for all 7 programs. Around that time, we're going to be having a number of informational sessions. So keep an eye out for those. And then you'll be able to apply for the various grants through our new grants portal. We expect to close the applications sometime in February, and then hopefully announce programs in June so that project managers can get their programs underway at the start of the new state fiscal year. We're going to be accepting grant applications through EEA's new grants management system. And so this is a new tool that we've developed to try to support grant applicants in finding an easy and streamlined way to apply for grants. The first thing you'll need to do is sign up for an account. It's easy to do, and you'll sign up with our statewide login tool called MyMassGov. This is a way to use a single password, username, and multi-factor authentication to access at least 20 different applications within the state. Many of you may already have one of these logins, both for the MyMassGov or even for the grants management system. It will be the same across the board. I believe that these slides will be shared, but there's some links on how to sign up. We also have an instructional playlist on YouTube and a user guide at our grants portal. I just wanted to point out a couple of things that may be helpful as you're signing up for a GMS account. First is that there's a little box there that is going to ask for your identity verification. This is a tool that is used for other applications within the state that do need your personally identifying information. However, we do not need this. So you do not need to fill out any taxpayer information on our site. And then when you're ready to, once you've created your MyMassGov password, you'll simply log in using the login or register screen. When you select that screen, you'll be asked to create and update a user profile on the grants management system. It'll ask you for some basic information about yourself and about your organization, and you'll simply put in that and submit that information and update your profile. You'll get a message like this. It's going to be verified, and that's how we're going to bring you into our grants management system. And we go through those as quickly as we can, but it usually takes less than 24 hours. I'd like to point out a couple of resources that are available. The first being the Eco One-Stop webpage on mass.gov. This is a really terrific resource that has a lot of information, including our grants catalog, which tells you a little bit more about all of the grants that will be included in the Eco One-Stop. Oops. That's about the gist of the one-stop. What I'd like to do, if I have some time, is to share some frequently asked questions that may have some answers to any questions that you may have. First of all, is how do you find out about the different grants? And there is what we call the EcoStop grants catalog, which tells you more about all of the grants and the different requirements and eligibility for each. That's probably the best way to find out more about each of these grants going forward. Unfortunately, our expression of interest period is now closed, so we can't accept any more of those. The next question is, how will these applications be reviewed? These are all still their separate programs, and they'll all be reviewed by their individual panel of experts that reviews them as standard practice. The difference with this is that we've tried to combine all of the questions that are always the same across all sorts of different grants into a set of core questions to try to streamline these applications. The review criteria will be provided within the grants catalog and the RFR when it is posted. Some people have asked, can I apply for the Eco One-Stop outside of or any of the individual grants without going through the One-Stop? Nope, this is the One-Stop, and this is the one entry point for all 7 of these grants, even if you just choose to apply for one. Frequently asked is, can someone apply or submit a grant application for me? And the answer is kinda. The eligible applicant must be the lead applicant. However, you will be able to share your grant application with consultants, grant writers, or even collaborating organizations to get together and work on the application in one place. However, whoever is ultimately going to have the grant contract from the state should be the primary applicant. Great question is, can I be awarded more than one grant? Yes, it may be unusual, but grant applicants who apply through the One-Stop will be able will be considered by all of the grant programs that they're eligible for. And in some cases, they may receive more than one grant contract. Our contact information is located here on the slide. We have a shared inbox, which is eco1stop@mass.gov, or you can visit our Eco One Stop page at mass.gov. And I'll stop sharing now, and I'm very happy to take questions later on. And I'm going to stop sharing. Thank you.
Sorry. Come on, video. All right. Thank you so much, Bill. Really appreciate the review of what looks like a very new and exciting consolidated way to get into EEA programs. I believe we have Courtney going next.
Yes. Share my screen.
There we go.
Computer is slow. Okay, here we are. Everyone, my name is Courtney Rocha. I'm a regional coordinator with the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness, or MVP program. Today, I'm going to give an overview of the MVP program and specifically talk about our action grants. Then I'll go over some stormwater case studies that might be relevant to this group. And then the question and answers will be at the end after all the presentators have gone. So before I start, I think it's important to note that there's two buckets of MVP funding, or essentially two grants. The first is the MVP planning grant, or you may have called it MVP 2.0. That's because we've revamped it recently, but it was originally called our planning grant. And this is a prescriptive planning process that the program has developed. And as much as it can be boiled down to 5 bullets, essentially you convene a community core team, and then we provide coaching on building climate justice and equity and climate resilience. And we give the core team a lot of tools to do engagement that involves a wider involvement of the community. And then with that newly established network and training, the core team, with the help of their community, would look back at their priority actions from their first plan or open space plan or hazard mitigation plan, and then update them with this new knowledge and experience. So the end result is a list of priority actions for climate change that the community has developed. And those priority actions are what makes folks, municipalities, eligible for our action grants. And so the action grants fund community identified actions, which I talked about or in the planning grant, that mitigate or adapt to the impacts of climate change. And I'll talk more about the action grants throughout this presentation, but I just want to show if your community is any color other than white, you have gone through MVP's planning process and your municipality has priority identified actions, and you can find them all on our website. Only a few communities have let their MVP certification lapse, which means their plan was up for recertification to go through the MVP program and they opted not to apply. If you have any more questions about your community's plan, or whether you're certified or when you'll need to be recertified for action grant funding, I would encourage you to reach out to your regional coordinator. And there's 6 of us across the state, and this is available on our website as well. So if you have any questions, I highly encourage you to reach out to one of them. If you're in the Southeast region, that is me. But I just want to know, up until the last planning round, last action grant round that we just released, we have awarded around 200 million in planning and action grant awards since the program's conception. And we continue to hold rounds every year. And this year, our action grant will be released with the Eco One Stop. If you're wondering whether or not your program or project idea would be competitive in our program, we typically point folks to the MVP core principles, and our scoring on our application does truly reflect these core principles. I won't mention them all, but there are a few that are weighted a bit more heavily than others. And the first one I'll say is nature-based solutions. So we like projects that are a bit more green and are restoring rather than gray. tend to do well in our program. We really encourage community outreach and education projects that are regional or transferable, and then also projects that are in or are in environmental justice neighborhoods or promote the resilience of EJ and priority populations. And then, of course, it builds the community capacity to adapt and climate resilience as well. Eligible applicants for our program are municipalities who have received an MVP community designation, which is what I talked about earlier, those who have gone through our planning process or have updated their plan through MVP. Additionally, political subdivisions of the Commonwealth, that include cities, towns, counties, districts, and then any authority, commission, board. Some RPAs are eligible, and then these entities must apply for projects that align with the community's priority actions. And then the last eligible applicant are tribal governments. Grant timeline, I know Bill covered some of these, but our program specifically, our max is $3 million per municipality or applicant and up to $5 million for regional projects. We require a 10% match, and we are reimbursement-based program. And then one thing that I'll note that we are tied to the fiscal year. Our grants are either 1 or 2 years, so making sure that's clear in a budget and the tasks are delineated between fiscal years is always really important. And then the project types of the action grants are planning, assessments, design and permitting, construction, on-the-ground implementation. Now, I know I said we have our planning grants, but our planning grants are a bit more prescriptive process. And sometimes the priority action that comes out of your planning grant is a bit more planning or assessment. And so we do fund all types of planning through our action grant as well. Many times we have funded projects through design and permitting into implementation. So any phase of project that MVP action grant can fund. And I know you all are here for stormwater today, but I think it's always helpful for list some projects that we won't fund. That's tree removal or hazard mitigation plans. We don't fund generators or any projects that aren't linked to implementation. So we don't really fund research projects. And here are some examples that I'll go through the few minutes I have left. This is an example in Pittsfield. We awarded them $322,000. And so what this project is, as working with the community, they found that the environmental justice community walks to their grocery store, but the path that they would traverse to get to the grocery store was frequently flooded and not that safe. So they worked with the community and a consultant to design this urban renewal where they can design a safe walkway, but also a system that captures storm water so the path wouldn't be flooded. So this is a good example of working with the community, understanding what their needs are, but incorporating minimizing climate impacts and also social resilience. This project is in Athol and it's ongoing, I believe, FY25, and we funded them $3 million for the construction. And this project daylights a stream. And it creates wetland, add green space, and increase flood storage. We funded this project through design and permitting as well in earlier stages, and working with the community, they found that this area was truly a hot spot in downtown Athol. So they wanted to incorporate more green elements to enhance the cooling, but also the stream continuity as well. So these projects incorporate various aspects of climate resilience, which really makes them competitive. This project is in Reading. We funded them, I guess I put a lot of construction, but we do fund other types of projects as well, $2 million. And this project, there was lots of flooding downstream, so they worked with the community to create a series of stormwater wetlands that could increase the storage capacity upland to reduce flooding downstream. And this increased stormwater storage and capacity, and this project was FY23. Also to note, if you have any more questions or want to learn more about our projects, all of this is on the on our MVP website. This project is in Mashpee. We funded them several years. This is in my region, and I just want to shout out to Mashpee. They're wonderful to work with, and they really have done a lot of wonderful work here on this project. So in Santuit Pond, the Cape, we think of coastal measures, but there's a lot of inland ponds there that are suffering from algal blooms and harmful bacteria. So they really wanted to reduce the load entering these ponds. And so they did green stormwater infrastructure. They constructed it at multiple sites. They also constructed a walking path that provided education and worked with the Mashpee Wampanoag. They're working on a mural on some of the stormwater infrastructure. So yes, this is partially great infrastructure, but they did a lot of community engagement. They educated the public at different fairs, and they had hands-on examples of how this stormwater was improving. This stormwater technology and this green stormwater improvements were helping the community, and did a lot of education around it. This project, I believe this is the last one. This is in Kempton Street, which is in New Bedford. This area is a hotspot. It's very paved. They felt that there was little that they could. They're in a city on a highly traversed corridor. They really wanted to implement some stormwater measures, and we helped them design some green infrastructure, and some bump outs and some medians that were gray initially. And they really wanted to fully implement nature-based solutions because this is part of the Buttonwood Brook watershed. So we worked with them for the design and permitting of this project as well. And like I said earlier, all of our projects are on our website, and you can see if your community is certified, where they are in their planning process. And this is an example of our grant viewer. If you click on action grants, and on the left hand side, you can't see it there, but I filtered for stormwater. So you can see all of the projects that we have done and funded in relation to stormwater across the Commonwealth. So you can read about the project there, and then you can see that the map is actually divided into our region. So if you would like more information, you'd like some deliverables, we really try to focus on our deliverables being transferable. So if there's something that you think could be useful to you, we will provide a deliverable from another project to you if it's something that you think would be helpful. And then again, here is our regional coordinators, like I just mentioned, and I really appreciate your time today, and I look forward to your questions at the end.
Oh, that was great, Courtney. Thank you so much. I'm sure everyone especially appreciates seeing those case studies. And jumping off from there, I just want to remind everybody that because the session is being recorded, you will be able to go back and look at all the presentations again if you need details. And as long as I'm taking this little sort of public service reminder break, if you just joined us, please put your name and affiliation in the chat. That helps us track attendance a little bit. And if you have questions, you can put them in the Q&A feature, which is at the bottom of your screen. Okay, so I think we can now go to our last presenter, Kathleen.
Awesome. Okay, I think you're seeing my screen. Hi, everyone. Kathleen Mason from the Massachusetts Office of Coastal Zone Management with the Coastal Habitat and Water Quality Grants Program. And our grant is focused on the improvement, protection, and restoration of coastal water quality and habitat across the Commonwealth. As Bill said, we're part of the Environment and Climate One-Stop program for this coming fiscal year. So I'll skip that as he touched on all of it. So the Coastal Habitat and Water Quality Grants programs are open to municipalities in the coastal watershed. Those are the municipalities highlighted in green in this image. So there's more than 200, and there's a list of these municipalities in the eligible watersheds that they fall into on our website. So if you're on the edge, go check out, make sure you're in the right, you're eligible. And our grant is also open to federally recognized tribes, certified 501c3 nonprofits, regional planning agencies, and stormwater collaboratives in partnership with the municipality that's located in the coastal watershed. And then our grant really focuses on eligible waters that are streams, rivers, coastal ponds, wetlands, estuaries, and marine waters that have a direct connection to the Massachusetts coast. So we are the coastal zone management, so we are definitely tied to the coast, but we work inland because everything, has downstream impacts. All right, I'm going to go through a few of our eligible project categories. Just like our name, coastal habitat and water quality, we touch on both water quality and habitat. And so I'll spend more time on the stormwater specific project categories and sort of gloss over the habitat ones. But if you do have questions about habitat projects, we can talk about those more offline. So our first eligible project category is stormwater assessment. So this is the assessment, identification, and characterization of stormwater, focusing on non-point source pollution, specifically stormwater discharges to those eligible water bodies within the coastal watershed. And we'll look for applicants to outline any existing data and knowledge to demonstrate a clear basis for this work. So are there any impairments in or known or observed impairments in the water body of interest? And activities under this category could include the physical evaluation of drainage areas, land use characterization, water quality testing, or investigation of appropriate types and placements of stormwater best management practices. I will just note on the water quality testing, we can fund some of that to just sort of confirm contaminants of concern, but we cannot fund long-term water quality monitoring. Our next stormwater related eligible project category is BMP implementation. So that's design, permitting, retrofits, and implementation of structural stormwater BMPs. Again, these are targeting treatment of contaminants of concern that are impairing the water quality in the receiving waters. And we hope these BMPs will remediate stormwater runoff from paved or unpaved roads, bridges, and parking lots. But we also fund retrofits of existing systems, so increasing the ability of that system to improve or protect water quality, remediate the contaminants of concern, and support resiliency over the design life of a structure. For all BMP implementation projects, we require an operation and maintenance plan for those implementation projects. We also require these projects to be located on municipally owned land or receive an access easement if they're going to be constructed on private land. The third project category is related to capacity building. So any activities to support the future implementation of green stormwater infrastructure or ensuring long-term maintenance and function. So that might include development, amendment, or implementation of stormwater bylaws or ordinances, green infrastructure operations and maintenance trainings for municipal staff, different guidance documents or case studies. Ultimately, all these sort of activities under this category relate to our development of resources or planning, design, or operation and maintenance activities for green stormwater infrastructure. Really promote that in the future. To just gloss over the habitat-related projects categories that we fund, this comprehensive habitat restoration planning, so taking a holistic look at a specific area of interest, the natural resources and stressors on that system, and from that, coming up with some ecosystem restoration opportunities and goals for the area and sort of prioritizing those in short and long-term actions. So some things that come from those could be stormwater related, but it is, more so focusing on the whole system of a habitat. And from under those also include priority land acquisition planning, so advanced planning and evaluation of potential lands for acquisition. These are for those applicants with a current or ongoing comprehensive habitat restoration plan with our funding. And so these focus on sort of the goals of land acquisition for restoration, buffer protection, or future marsh migration. And we do not fund land acquisition itself, but we do fund the activities to help with the planning of it. So legal analysis, assessment of ownership, and prioritization of lands. And then the last project category, again, this is falling under our habitat branch of things, is pre-implementation data collection and engineering to support future implementation of crossing infrastructure improvements for habitat restoration. Again, it's really important that these are municipally owned crossings and that they're working to achieve habitat restoration goals. Okay, so with all of our eligible project categories I just mentioned, we'll look for projects to include public or applications to describe public engagement, education, and outreach. Either that is either participation and engagement that have happened already to sort of inform the project that you're proposing, or activities that will occur during your project timeline, so they can be incorporated as part of your project. And so we'll look to understand that and really promote activities that increase participatory decision making. And so it's important to note that these are allowable costs within your project, but this is not sort of like the whole scope of your project. It is a component to those eligible project categories. All right, and I'm going to quickly get into some stormwater related project examples that we've funded previously. All right, so the first one is specific. This is a project that we funded for the Association to Preserve Cape Cod, and they collaborated with a number of different towns across the Cape and had already done a great planning assessment of stormwater or opportunities for stormwater infrastructure on public boat ramps across the Cape. And so here are some photos from 2 different boat ramps at Scargo Lake in Dennis. And these were recently just completed through funding for the Association to Preserve Cape Cod and the town of Dennis to complete design and construction. So you can see some of the different systems that existed there. We've also sort of funded earlier phases of the project for design and permitting, and then another phase for construction. This is another project that was funded through the town of Yarmouth with help from the Association to Preserve Cape Cod, so a great partnership that exists on the Cape. And they started with sort of site assessments and 25% designs for 5 different priority sites. And then they chose the top 2 sites to advance through design, permitting, and construction. So Curve Hill is up in the upper left, this photo about, it shows the water quality BMPs constructed at Curve Hill Road, which included a constructed stormwater wetland. And then the bottom right is a green stormwater infrastructure constructed at Standish Way, and that included infiltration trenches and bioretention systems. So this was another project that we had sort of funded through multiple phases through our grant program. Another project, this one existed in the town of Fairhaven. This is Jerusalem Road, which is a residential neighborhood on Sconticut Neck, which is a peninsula extending into Buzzards Bay. It is a sloped road. As you can see, Buzzards Bay is way in the background there. And so all the stormwater from a road uphill was sort of flowing down through this neighborhood and straight into Buzzards Bay. They were facing some shellfish harvesting closures and degraded water quality in that New Bedford Fairhaven harbor. And so the town installed multiple bioretention basins along this road. And this built off previous work that had been completed by the Buzzards Bay Stormwater Collaborative and the Buzzards Bay National Estuary Program. All right, the last example I'm going to show you, this was completed in 2019 in the city of Salem on Winter Island. And this was actually funded, our grant program used to be called the Coastal Pollutant Remediation Grant Program. So now we're Coastal Habitat and Water Quality. And so they came in through that and got funding with the Salem Sound Coast Watch to design, permit, and construct a rain garden, which incorporated high performance biofiltration systems to catch and treat the stormwater runoff. The runoff used to go straight through a parking lot and sort of erode the coastal bank right into Salem Harbor. So it wasn't only a water quality issue, but sort of like a resilience issue to address that erosion. So that was that project. And they also included some educational signage too. So similarly, we also have a grant program at CZM, and this includes both the Coastal Habitat and Water Quality grants, which was previously called Coastal Pollutant Remediation. So you can see multiple grants that we have, and then the Coastal Resilience grants at CZM are also included in this. So I definitely encourage you to check those out and see what has happened in your area. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to myself or my manager, Adrian, or any of our CZM regional coordinators to discuss potential projects. And we can keep talking and keep working with you until that RFR comes out. And we'd be happy to connect. So that's all on my end. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Kathleen, thank you so much for such a comprehensive presentation. So I want to open it up for Q&A. And I'm not seeing any Q&A in the chat. I will ask a question actually of you, Kathleen. So I noticed that there's a data category that you had, and I'm just wondering if you can give us any samples of projects that have happened from that category.
Yeah, so our pre-implementation data collection and engineering category is a sort of habitat specific category, and that is new as of this year. So we just funded one project in the town of Weymouth to look at a municipally owned crossing with a tide gate that was restricting flow to like a 14-acre salt marsh. So that one is definitely specific to habitat restoration and is still new, but yeah, we're excited to see what else comes of it.
Yeah, I can imagine there could be some really great data collection projects that folks could do. And so it's fantastic to see that this category has opened up. It's great to be able to share that information in this forum. The other question I guess I wanted to get to is with you, Courtney. Could you talk a little bit more about the certification process? I think some folks might not be familiar with MVP certification.
Yeah, so going through our planning grant, receiving funds for our planning grant, and going through our planning process would make a community MVP certified and therefore eligible for our action grants. We had hoped every 5 years to update the plan, but we just don't have the capacity to take on that many communities to be recertified in any given year. So we have a list going, and your regional coordinator will notify you when you're up for recertification and that you need to apply for the 2.0 program. Your certification won't lapse without municipality hearing from us in some capacity. And so just in summary, you would have to go through our planning process where almost 99% of the Commonwealth have. There are a few towns that they were up for recertification. We notified them and they opted not to go through the MVP 2.0 process. So they're no longer eligible for action grants until they apply to do the 2.0 process.
Great. That's super helpful. Okay, does anybody have any questions? It seems like we've got a kind of a quiet group today, and also the speakers were so comprehensive. Perhaps that has like not created any questions. Thank you. So, as we said earlier, here's the QR code for the evaluation form. It only takes a few minutes. I presume since nobody had any questions, you'll think this was an excellent presentation. And it really does help us out in continuing the program. We get limited funding to put these webinars on, and we want to make sure we continue to get that funding. So with that, I think I will close us out a little early and give everyone 10 minutes back. I want to thank today's speakers for making the time and putting together really such great information on. I know that it can be very difficult to navigate through funding programs, and new information is coming out all the time. And we'll remind everybody in the audience again that if you missed a detail, we'll have the recording up for you on the Mass Rivers Alliance website shortly. All right. Thanks. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.